Welcome to Around Town. My name is Jason Plotkin, and I'm a director of the Laurel Board of Trade and your host. I'm also the CEO and managing attorney of the Pinder Plotkin Legal Team, located in Laurel, Maryland. We're a personal injury law firm that handles auto accidents, truck accidents, dog bites, and workers' compensation claims. As a survivor of 2 serious collisions documented in my book, Crash Course to Recovery and Beyond, I've stood in the shoes of my clients, had my life flash before my eyes, suffered through surgery, and faced the unknown of recovery. Additionally, I'm the founder of GoodBox.ai, which provides AI services to small and medium businesses. We specialize in AI employees and AI voice receptionists. But wait, there's more. I'm also the co-founder of Truce's Tax Advisory, because tax planning shouldn't start in April. It should be year-round for business owners or those with 1099 income. Proper planning creates extra income you can use for the vacation you've always dreamed of. So we have a great episode here today. We're getting started with Karen Lubieniecki, a longtime Laurel volunteer. Lots of history we're going to talk about here today. So thank you for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So can you just start with a little bit of your journey to Laurel and how you became such a volunteer?
Well, I moved to Laurel in 1991 after I was married. I was living in Virginia at the time, and I had gone to school at Georgetown University and had started my career in public relations. But I was based down in Alexandria, and then a good thing happened, and I met my husband, and we decided that we would renovate the house he had purchased in 1978, which is an old Victorian on Prince George Street. And so we did that. We lived in my house in Alexandria for a year because we basically took the house down to the studs, and we became extremely familiar with the Historic District Commission because we did all the work by the regulations that they had, and by the way, just parenthetically, benefited from the tax credits that were and still are available to people who do the work, under.
Those tax credits are a great opportunity for any businesses or people moving into the community.
Absolutely, and they're really, the Historic District Commission, I have to say, have been on it a couple of terms actually. Sometimes gets a bad rap. But the fact of the matter is that if you read the regulations and you work closely with the commission, it's a pretty easy process. I mean, I've done it numerous times. The staff is usually helpful. If you're doing something that's called replacement in kind, that means that you really just can get the staff to approve it. So it's really not a difficult process, and there really is a benefit not just to you from your tax credits, but you're basically benefiting the whole community, because when you bring your house up to that historic level, it makes the whole community look better. Likewise, if you do it on Main Street and follow the facade requirements and things like that, that benefits the whole economy of the whole town. So I'm a real big advocate for the Historic District Commission and the work that it does. And if I may throw in,
sure.
The Historic District Commission actually is also celebrating 50 years this year, because it was founded as a direct result of Laurel's 1976 bicentennial.
Oh, wow. And something else was founded by the bicentennial,
Well,
right?
the Laurel Historical Society is also a direct outgrowth of that. It was founded originally as the Laurel Horizon Society, which followed one of the things that they were doing in the bicentennial at that time. It later changed its name to the Historical Society. So both of those are celebrating 50 years, more than 50 years right now. And actually, you can see them at the Laurel Museum. There's a whole exhibit about how Laurel celebrated the centennial in 1876, the 150th in 1926, and in 1976, where the town had 10 days, if you can believe that, of celebrations.
Well, now, is that exhibit currently open?
That exhibit will be open through December. So I encourage people to come actually before the 4th of July, if you can, because it's free. The Laurel Museum is always free, and it's open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 12 to 4. So It's free, and it's wonderful. And maybe later on we can talk about other parts of the exhibit and some of the fun things that we found in the research.
Well, I'd like to go for this. So let's peek behind the curtain. Try to explain to the viewers what goes into putting together an exhibit like that.
Well, exhibits are fun. I've worked on every exhibit at the museum since 1976, except for one. I mean, I've worked literally on all of them. And what we usually do is we decide on a topic that we're going to cover, and we go and take a look and see if we have objects or what we might need to put in that exhibit. We come up with a theme for the exhibit, because when you're doing a museum exhibit, you're really telling stories. And what we're telling is stories about Laurel. And one of the things that the Laurel Historical Society did, the founders, Jane Cole and Betty Compton, did when they were creating the Historical Society, they made the decision not to be a house museum. I mean, many of us have gone to terrific house museums, and they'll tell the story of a house at a certain period of time.
So who lived there?
Who lived there, what they did. And you go to that place how many times? One time.
Yeah.
Betty and Jane and the other people who were working on this early on, they made the decision that we would be telling the story of the city of Laurel, which we have now expanded out to what I would call Laurel zip code, so that we can have different exhibits all the time. So there's a new exhibit at the Laurel Museum every year. I mean, we've covered World War I, World War II, the Civil War, the 1950s, and we actually did do an entire exhibit on I Was a Laurel Mill Worker, where we actually made the exhibit focus on the life of the mill workers during the time the mills were active.
Wow. So what's your favorite exhibit that you've seen?
Boy, that's tough because I've worked on so many of them. They're little bits and pieces of everyone. I think to a certain extent, both the Civil War and World War I were particularly interesting because we discovered so much new information. Okay. For the Civil War, for example, we all think of Laurel as being, or Maryland is a very southern state. But for whatever reason, we don't have a lot of information on what people did and thought in Laurel during the Civil War, right? But what we did discover was that Laurel had a Union soldiers stationed at where the railroad station is now through the entire Civil War. And
really?
Yes.
Wow.
Who knew, right?
Sure.
There's actually even a map that we have a copy of that's actually in the Library of Congress, and we have visions of it, that shows how the camp was set up and everything. Harriet Beecher Stowe's brother wrote columns to his local New York paper about his experience in Laurel. So that was really interesting because you did all this research and found all this wonderful new stuff. I mean, if you like mystery stories, for example, you should love history because history is like doing mysteries all the time. So that's one of my favorites, as you can tell, because I get very excited.
No, I can see you get perked up by it.
I get perked up about it because it was exciting. And World War I, we found a lot about the soldiers who had been here and what they did and where they went. I mean, every exhibit has something unexpected that comes out of it. I mean, can I tell you my favorite from the current exhibit?
No, definitely. I want it. That's what we're here for.
So in 1926, people did not have fireworks. They were banned.
Wow.
Wow. So there's no fireworks in 1926. But evidently it was a jurisdictional thing that you could decide to have fireworks. And we discovered, because the city very generously, by the way, I did the research in the minutes for the city of Laurel to look in the minutes to see what.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, but that's interesting. Yeah. Yes, it is. Well, I didn't look at all the minutes. I mean, during like the period just before the 1926 150th anniversary, like 2 or 3 years before and a little bit after, that right after the July 4th period, the city decided to change its regulations on the fireworks. And the first group that they gave a fireworks permit to was the KKK.
Really?
Really. And you can go to the Laurel Museum, and that's in the exhibit right now. So, So that was something, who knew?
Sure. That's something you wouldn't expect.
You wouldn't expect. Yes, we were like, well, that's interesting.
That's when you put your reading glasses back on. Right?
Yeah. Well, and you read the panels and stuff. And we have interesting things there. You know, it's this current exhibit, which I did work on. We have a whole exhibits team. It's headed by our executive director, Kristen Norton, who's really just terrific. There's a whole exhibits team, and we work on different people work on different panels of it. But what we also included in this exhibit was two important things. We looked at how Laurel celebrated the freedoms of, the centennial anniversaries, the 100th, 150th, 200th, and 250th. But we also looked at how we celebrate other freedoms.
Okay.
Like we have something on Pride. We have something on the Emancipation Day celebration, which Laurel has had since the early 1900s, has had an Emancipation Day celebration.
Oh, really?
Long before people were celebrating Juneteenth, Emancipation Day was the big deal here in Laurel. And actually one of the members of the executive committee works very hard on that. She does a 5K for diabetes that happens with the Emancipation Day. Jackie Jones, I'll give her a plug because her 5K is really wonderful. And we do Juneteenth. So there's other ways you celebrate freedom. And the exhibit also talks about, during each of these periods, who was included in the celebrations, but who was excluded. Early on, women had almost no role. The women had to do their own pavilion and pay for it at the Philadelphia exhibit in 1876. People of color had very limited opportunities to be part of those celebrations and the other celebrations. So if you come to the museum, you can learn more about that too.
It sounds like there's a hidden gem in Laurel about the history.
Laurel's history is very rich. I mean, we were Prince George's County's only factory town, the only one, because of the way the river goes. So we're much more like Savage or Ellicott Mills in terms of the geography. And we had a grist mill and a cotton mill early on, and we got equipment for the cotton mills from Lowell, Massachusetts, which was a big manufacturing area. But that makes us unique as a town, you know. And so some of that early history revolves around the factory much, much more.
Now let's go to some new history. So we just had the Preakness, just wrapped an online exhibit. I believe it's the first online exhibit that's been done, the Laurel Historical Society.
No, but...
It's not the first, okay.
Okay, we have the Preakness online, which is great, because that'll be there for you. You can watch it now anytime. We actually had an exhibit also in City Hall, which we had up during the month of May, that people could have come to and seen. But the online exhibit is actually a direct outgrowth of an exhibit that we did in 2000, I want to say 11, which was celebrating the 100th anniversary of Laurel Racetrack. So we did an entire exhibit celebrating the racetrack, and we still have the materials that we developed for that. So we've taken those and repurposed them into an exhibit that you can now watch online. There's another exhibit on a gentleman named Horace Capron online. I know this because I did the exhibit. So.
Gotcha. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought the one that just wrapped up was the first one.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's exciting. And what's the approach behind these online? Is it to gather younger viewers, or people that aren't able to go out as much anymore?
Well, I think there's several opportunities. We want to make sure that the history gets as broad a distribution as possible, and having online exhibits is a way that people can kind of come and take a look and see what we've done in the past. And it's a way certainly to get some younger audiences. People can research our collection online. Okay. You can go online to our website, www.laurelhistoricalsociety.org. And when you get to the front homepage, there's a way that says place to go to search our collections, and you can put in a keyword, and you can see what we have in the collection related to that. So if you're looking for something specific, that'll be there. And you can also set up an appointment to actually do research at the museum.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And sometimes if there's a specific question, I'm not as up on the exact terms of this right now, so don't quote me completely. But you can also have
We're off the record here, totally.
No, yeah. You can have. We can do some research for you. Sometimes there are fees involved, depending on the duplication costs and stuff. But if you have a research question, and you ask the staff there, they will try to research it for you if possible.
Okay, that's exciting to know. And
we're a resource for the community.
Sure, that's very much what I'm gathering from this. That it's
we're absolutely
a great resource.
And we're beautifully located. You can come visit the museum, and then you can take a nice walk on Riverfront Park, which is right there.
That sounds like a beautiful afternoon.
It is a beautiful afternoon, or a beautiful morning. And there's actually some historic markers that you can see to talk about the history of Laurel on Riverfront Park when you take the walk.
Oh, nice. And there's a 9/11 exhibit coming up, right?
There will be a 9/11. Many people know, but many of your viewers, because, you know, a town changes over 5 to 10 years. New people move in. They're not quite as aware of the community's history. And people may say, oh, 9/11, you must have had some people maybe working at the Pentagon. Well, Laurel actually
I was one of those people,
and
right?
you were one of those people. And yes, we did. Absolutely. And actually, I know several people in Laurel who had very moving stories related to the actual 9/11 events. But what we also had here in Laurel is several of the hijackers stayed at the Valencia Motel prior to their hijacking. I mean, they were researching in the library, and they were here and keeping a very low profile. So we have a very somewhat unique story to tell. And we did an exhibit in 2011, and we're planning, I think, to do another one. Again, Kirsten, our executive director, would be the person who can confirm all that.
Coming attractions.
Coming attractions, and we'll have a new exhibit in 2026, but I'm not at liberty to tell you the title of that yet.
We look forward to that exciting announcement.
But if you haven't come to the museum, or you came a couple of years ago, you should come back because there's a new exhibit every year. So there's something new to see.
Sure. No, I'm definitely going to bring my kids to check it out.
Well, we're actually going to be having, and I'm sorry, I don't know the date, a children's program relatively soon. We have camps for kids. We have a Rube Goldberg camp. We have a science camp that we've done a number of years. So if you have kids, you actually should take out, because there is going to be a kids' day, and I'm sorry, I don't know the date.
Let's elaborate on this camps a little bit, because I think a lot of our viewers might not expect to have a camp there.
Right.
Do you know how do they register or find out more information?
I would go onto the website,
Okay.
which we gave you, and
Sure.
I assume you'll put up on that thing, www.laurelhistoricalsociety.org.
Okay.
Or if you want to just email us, you could do info@laurelhistoricalsociety.org, and somebody would respond to you. But that'll have the information on the camps and everything that are upcoming.
That's an exciting resource. And is that part of the idea or any kind of focus to bring the younger folks from Laurel into volunteering, right? Because volunteering is very generational, and a lot of times I'm seeing in places, the Laurel Board of Trade itself as well, generational gap between some of the volunteers. I'll be curious. You've seen so much history. You've been a volunteer for a long time. What have you noticed, and what do you think's going to be the
Well, we're
future?
always looking for new volunteers. I mean, because we have volunteers who are our docents. We have volunteers when we have activities. We have house tours and garden tours, and so you need a lot of volunteers to put those together. You know, we have fundraising activities. We're always at the Main Street Festival. We'll be at the 4th of July, I believe. We're always, at the Emancipation Day, Pride Day. So we have people who staff. So we have a lot of volunteer opportunities, and we're always looking for younger people. It's a great way to do some community service. And what you really want is people who are new to the community to realize that they have a stake in not just learning about the history, but helping us document the current history. Because today's current history is tomorrow's past history. One of the examples I'd like to use is when George Floyd, when there were all the riots about George Floyd, and Laurel had a very big protest over at Granville Goody Park. I actually went, and we made a point, the Historical Society made a point of collecting a lot of those signs, which we actually used in an exhibit, but those are things that will help us document the story of what happened during that period 20, 30, 50, hopefully 100 years from now. Oh. So the things that are happening today, that's why like the Smithsonian and all these big museums, they have recognized they need to be collecting events as they happen. Even political signs and buttons and all the materials that you get for elections, we actually want the things that people have, for elections. And I'll do a little plug for if you're cleaning out a family house, perhaps a resident, a parent who's lived here a long time, please think of us, because there's a lot of things that they might have. Even receipts can tell a whole story. One of the most compelling stories we have is about the Laurel Pool, and we tell that story with a pool token. Because the Laurel Pool is a way to tell the story of part of the African American community here in Laurel. Yeah. So the land where the Laurel Pool is, the one at the end of Main Street, not the Greenview, but the one at the end of Main Street, was where the Laurel factory was. Okay. That's where the cotton mill was. But after the cotton mill was torn down, Dr. Warren and other citizens realized that swimming in the Patuxent right there really wasn't that healthy. Yeah. Right, not healthy. Yeah. Right, we don't even talk about
not super safe.
Not super safe. Who knows what was going in there even earlier. And the community came together and they did fundraising and they built a pool. Right, they even did like a blackface musical at the time. Right, okay. But this pool was segregated. Black people who lived in the Grove, which is only like 3 blocks away, were not allowed to go to that pool. And by 1967, there was a lot of turmoil in Laurel. The KKK tried to burn several buildings over in the Grove, tried to burn St. Mark's, but it's made with concrete blocks, so no. And there was a lot of activity that the city got involved in, and the members of the Grove community said, look, there have to be some changes here, in Laurel. And one of the changes that they advocated for was integrating the pool. And the way that happened was the city of Laurel bought the pool, then integrated it.
So it was privately owned first?
It was privately owned. So, there's actually a historic marker. There's a wayfinding marker there that you can go if you see that. But the reason, we have a token, and by having that token from the early Laurel pool, we can tell that whole story because we have one object that will tell you that story.
What did the token do?
I think the token was your admission to the pool.
Okay, so you had like a membership and you had to show your token to get in?
Well, I think this was a token for after it integrated.
Okay.
When I think when you lived in Laurel and you joined the pool, you got a token. I didn't live here then, sorry.
Okay.
But it gives us a way to tell that story. I mean,
Okay.
this community has changed so much demographically.
Sure.
I mean, for many years it was a majority white population, and now it's a majority black population with a large Asian population. And we want all the people who live here now to realize that the life they're living is Laurel's history.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very diverse. I know our clients in the community are extremely diverse.
Right.
And we just see it across all of our areas. And it's really a breath of fresh air.
Right. But from our perspective, or not from our, but from the Historical Society, because I'm very active in the Historical Society, but I don't technically speak for the Historical Society.
Sure.
But I'm a long-time volunteer, so there you go.
You've been in PR, what, 3 decades or so?
Something like that.
So
Yeah,
it's hard not to speak.
It's hard. It's hard. It's very hard, especially about something that I feel very passionate
Sure, I can
about.
see the passion.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I love history. I mean, I just love it. And getting involved in the Historical Society was a way for me to take what was a personal interest and actually kind of see it come to life, because I was actually president of the society when the museum opened in 1996, and other people had worked very hard to make that museum happen. But how often in your life do you actually get to be there on the ground floor of a museum and help it grow and prosper and see it grow and prosper? I mean, we started out as an all-volunteer organization, and we now have 3 paid staff, which is pretty good.
That's very good.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Karen, thank you for taking the time to join us today. So that's all for today's episode of Around Town. If you have a local business, make sure to join the Laurel Board of Trade. Who knows, one day you may be joining me on set. And if you enjoy learning about these businesses, be sure to like and follow the Laurel Board of Trade's social media to stay informed about upcoming events. Thanks for watching. My name is Jason Plotkin. I'll see you next time.